Okay. Hello, and hello again, everyone. You are welcome here today to this channel where we talk about everything we need to know as humans. We create awareness on life, career, mental health, physical health, jobs, anything anyone wants to know. So this is all we're about, creating awareness. So thank you very much for joining us today. If you are here or when you come in, or if you're watching over this video, just please share, like, comment, send your questions. And today I have with me a special guest. Before I introduce him, we will be talking about some anonymous questions that have been asked by people like you and I who want to know more about mental health, and they've got burning questions in their minds. So today, before I call my guest in, I'd like us to go through this video. So this video is a video I actually thought would throw more light on what we're about to do today. So let's listen together.
We all have mental health. It is just as important as physical health. It is not only about mental illness or mental disorders. This is just one part of a bigger picture.
Okay, like we have heard, it's one part of a bigger picture. Mental health, physical health, financial health, any kind of health at all is all part of a bigger picture, what we're talking about today.
It's best to think about mental health as being on a continuum rather than being either mentally ill or mentally well. We are all on the continuum, and we move up and down according to factors such as our genetic makeup and upbringing, our life circumstances, and the stresses we are under.
Okay, so thank God it's Friday. It's time to relax because we've been through a continuum, like she said, and up and down the pendulum, work, family, so many things are there to stretch us and stress us sometimes. But how do we manage our mental health?
One end of the continuum, we have mental disorders, like depression or anxiety. And at the other end, we have states of positive mental health, when we're thriving, content, and fulfilled. The aim of mental health interventions is to move people up the continuum so that they're able to reach their full potential and live satisfying lives. The World Health Organization describes mental health as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community.
So we've all heard that it's about contributing positively to life through how well we are, how sane we are mentally. If we're not healthy mentally, it could affect different things. It could affect us, affect even the people around us, not just us alone. So how do we stay healthy mentally? That is what we are talking about today. Let's carry on.
Being mentally healthy means being resilient and able to cope with difficult times, feeling in control, being confident, feeling good about yourself, managing and expressing your emotions, building and maintaining good relationships. We all experience periods when we feel stressed, worried, anxious, sad, afraid, or angry. These are all normal emotions. However, when these emotions become severe enough that it interferes with a person's ability to function daily, and these feelings become persistent over time, then it can develop into a mental health problem.
Okay, we've heard it all. It's about maintaining that balance between the stressful times and the happy times, and just trying to put our acts together so that we don't fall above the threshold of sanity. And because we are all wired differently, and we know that this could affect how we react to things or relate to other people. So let's watch on.
There are many different types of mental disorders. When left untreated, mental disorders can be chronic and long-lasting and are associated with increased disability. They significantly have an impact on daily functioning and frequently interfere with family, social, and work responsibilities. Fortunately, there are effective treatments and evidence-based interventions available that aim to help individuals understand and cope with symptoms of mental illness.
And that's why we have today a doctor in our midst who is going to talk to us about how to deal with questions we have. So many people have just an answer to a question could make a difference in people's lives. And that is why we are here today. So I'll play this video almost to the end and see before we call up our guests.
However, very few people with mental disorders access existing treatment services. This may be due to barriers such as the stigma attached to seeking help, the lack of understanding of mental health problems, uncertainty of how to get help, or the fear of disclosing mental health problems. Research shows that stigma remains one of the biggest factors preventing people from seeking help early for their mental health problems and getting the appropriate support they need. It is important to acknowledge that we all have mental health and have a personal responsibility to learn how we can improve and maintain our well-being.
Okay, she talked about lack of understanding and stigma and fear or lack of information could also hinder people from getting the help they need. So we are here with a doctor who is a professional trained to help us with some of these questions that people have asked anonymously. Now to the end of the video.
In order to lead meaningful and satisfying lives. Want to learn how you can do this? Great news! Why not join one of our communities and keep exploring Maudsley Learning Online?
So thanks to Maudsley Learning Online for creating that video, for giving us that opportunity to use their video. Thank you very much, Maudsley Learning Online. Now, I introduce on the screen Dr. Ugochukwu Uchendu.
Hello. Good evening.
Hello. Good evening. You are welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you very much. Could you please introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Ugochukwu Uchendu. I'm a senior registrar at the Department of Mental Health, University of Abuja Teaching Hospital, Gwagwalada. And I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time, finding time out of no time, because I know you are very, very, very busy, but you found time out of no time to be here with us, to educate us and create awareness about mental health in our society. Thank you very much. I really appreciate this.
Thank you, Dr. Bumi, for taking on this course. I mean, you're doing very well. And we need more of this advocacy, more of these kind of sessions for people to understand what mental health really is and to know how to go about when they have issues. So well done. I should rather be thanking you for creating the platform.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Without you all being here to talk about things, it will be hard for me to even set this up. So thank you, thank you, thank you for adding value to the world. So we'll just go straight to the questions because I know we've gone 11 minutes already into our time. And the first question says, what parameters are in place to know when to seek help from a mental health professional?
Okay. So this first question is very interesting, um, because well, the question can be looked at in a number of ways. When one sees what are the parameters, you might tend to think of what has the government put in place, what has the health Ministry of Health put in place to help those who might be going through mental health challenges come to to come to their aid on time. But I think the person asking this question was rather referring to individuals. So, so if you permit me to take the question as what are the signs or what are the symptoms, what are the things that a person would experience and would, prompt the person to start thinking, I might need to see a mental health professional. So, and I think to be able to explain that well, we need to understand the concept of mental health. And that's why I so much love the video you played just before the session. So if you noticed, that video gave a definition for mental health, optimal mental health. It defined it as a state of well-being in which an individual is able to attain his potential, okay, able to cope with the stresses of life, able to work productively, and finally is able to contribute meaningfully to the community. So you see that for you to be able to know that you're in a good state of mental health, you need to have good functioning in not just your private personal life, in your occupational life, in your social life, and of course, generally speaking, with your family members and all. So most mental health disorders, in fact, practically all mental health disorders, before we can make a diagnosis to say this is a mental health disorder, one or more of these domains of functioning will have been affected. Either the person's personal functioning, the person's occupational functioning, the person's relationship with his family, or others outside the family. But at an individual level, there are certain symptoms, there are certain things that when you begin to see, then your mind should go to the fact that it might be a psychological distress that you're having. These symptoms are a spectrum. Okay, so we have those that we might consider as commoner, maybe a bit milder because of their presentation and because people don't really, see them and regard them so much, depending on the culture that such individuals live. While there are some that are severe enough that even some, an uninitiated would say, no, this is there is a problem. Let's get this person to the hospital. Unfortunately, in a country like where I am, Nigeria, the level of awareness for mental health is quite low. And even in high-income countries, the awareness is more, but because of issues of stigma and maybe under-information, sometimes people don't get help. So, but when you begin to see symptoms like anxiety symptoms, anxiety is something that, of course, is a normal experience of humans. Okay, when you have a threatening situation, when you have a situation that you're unable to, that is not within your control, the tendency is for us to become anxious, to become, a little unsettled, to have palpitations when we are confronted with such a situation. But you see, when it becomes a problem is when a person dwells perpetually in this state of anxiety. So almost all through the day, you feel palpitations, you're apprehensive, you're almost always sitting on an edge as if something is wrong and you can't really place it. Or sometimes it could have to do with specific situations and objects, and at other times it might not necessarily have to. And when it is persisting and affecting a person's functioning, affecting your concentration at work, affecting your sleep, and all of that, you know that this is gradually leaving the normal, so to say, experience and becoming a problem. So it should heighten your suspicion. There are also other things that are readily affected when a person's the person's mind is disturbed. Such things include our mood. Okay, so a person's mood, a person's feeling state is usually very, very affected, easily affected because, for example, a person might begin to feel sad. Sadness in itself is not an abnormal experience. It becomes a problem when it persists beyond the stimulus that probably induced the sadness, or when it is, even if the stimulus is there, it is the intensity is way beyond what we expect such a person to have in that kind of situation. And then when it is longer, it's now, practically almost an everyday thing. And then when it's not responsive to normal things that should excite a person. So, and then of course, remember what I mentioned earlier about functioning, when it begins to affect a person's functioning. Your energy level also could become low, okay, and you might begin to have very bad kind of thinking. So when you're seeing all these things, that's another kind of group of symptoms you might have, usually in depression. But there is now another spectrum, which we call the psychotic disorders. Okay, these are when people have experiences that are actually not usual experiences. They may occur very occasionally. For example, a person might hear his name called out and he does not see the person who has called him. I'm sure you must have had that, Dr. Bini, but it's not a frequent thing. But when a person now begins to hear these voices almost all the time, okay, sometimes conversing, talking about him, commanding him, then it becomes a problem. So when there is a distortion and the person is beginning to perceive things in a sensory modality, whether it is the sense of seeing, the sense of hearing, the sense of tasting, even the sense of feeling, okay, and you can't see something that is causing the person to have that sensation. If the person is holding you, for instance, if you feel that your skin is being held, if you look, you could see someone holding you, for instance. If you hear your name called out and somebody says something, when you turn, you should see someone. So it's an objective reality. But when that objective reality is no longer there and you're still hearing those things, you're still seeing those things, and others cannot see, then you're having what we call hallucinatory experiences. So that is a symptom of a major symptom that we should look out for. When a person has odd beliefs, you just find out that people are complaining that your beliefs are quite odd. I mean, these things you're saying are not possible in these circumstances. They are irrational. And you seem to be having problem even with your closest friends, your closest siblings, your wife, and they are complaining. It might be because you're beginning to have something that is called delusions. Okay, and then there are some behaviors that are completely out of normal. For example, someone suddenly standing up and walking out in the public naked, that is not a usual experience. So, of course, that is usually obvious to people. So, when you're having all these things, begin to think that, or any of them, begin to think that you might need to seek help. And finally, let me say that an eye into a person's mind, a window into a person's mind could be there are certain functions, there are certain experiences that we have that could be a window, or normal things that could be a window to your mind. One of them is sleep. So most mental health conditions would usually start with sleep problems. They usually have, even if they don't start with it, they'll have sleep problems accompanying it. Unfortunately, when people have problems with sleep, what they do is to go to get sleeping pills. But majority of sleeping problems are not sleeping disorders, primary sleeping disorders. They have something underneath that is, causing that. So the person who is anxious, who has anxiety disorder, for instance, will have sleeping problems. The person who has depression, clinically depressed, will have sleeping problems. Someone with schizophrenia, sleeping problems. So it's almost substance use, sleeping problems. So when you have that, it might also be a pointer. Secondly, appetite. So a change in appetite may also be an indication to a problem with the person's that the person has psychological distress. For example, when you find out that you're losing appetite, you don't eat like you normally would want to. You don't even feel like eating, okay? And it's not due to a medical condition, maybe malaria or any of such kind of organic conditions. You know that there may be a problem. And overeating also would also be a pointer to that. So I think this is I've tried to attempt to answer this question. It's actually a very broad question. But generally speaking, when you have this stress affecting your functioning, you might just need to see your general practitioner or a family physician, depending on where you are, who would then refer you appropriately.
True. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. So many things have been said there. you said sadness is not abnormal, but when it's persistent, then it becomes abnormal. And there are pointers. I think what the person wanted to say was, what are the pointers to know when to seek help from a medical professional? So lack of sleep, like Dr. Chen said, loss of appetite, overeating, hallucinations, delusions, so many things. So if you're not sure and you feel, should I not? It's better you should than to, wave it aside. And you might just be surprised that when you go there and seek professional help, they might tell you, oh, no, it's just normal. But it's better to know rather than just pushing it back all the time. Okay, thank you very much. The next question says, do you feel like life has no meaning? So when someone starts feeling like life has no meaning, is that a pointer? What do you think, sir?
Yes, so I would say that it might not be unusual for the majority of persons to have 1 or 2 mornings when you wake up and you just wonder why exactly, are you doing here? So it's not unusual for that to occur occasionally, maybe once in a very long while. But when it becomes a problem is when it's something that you sleep and wake up with almost every day. You wake up feeling tasteless, you kind of feel tasteless. That feels as if your mouth is tasteless. You can't even taste food. Nothing seems to interest you. You don't have a desire to live because your life seems like it doesn't have a meaning, it doesn't have a purpose. So when this becomes a recurring thing, it's a big problem. Not just this a problem, it's a big one. There are a number of things that could be responsible for this, but majorly, this is seen in people who have a major depressive disorder. So by the time a person is waking up every day, feeling sad, feeling helpless, feeling worthless, feeling helpless, and feeling hopeless, and not wanting to live, um, sometimes it might not be as severe as the person wanting to take his life, but the person might wish that he was dead, that he would sleep and not wake up the following morning. When you see people who have those kind of behavior, or it's a red flag, something you should seek urgent help from a mental health professional, because the person might just be severely depressed and on his way to committing suicide. So this is a typical experience of someone who is clinically depressed. So if you're feeling this way currently, then you need to seek help urgently. You need to seek help urgently. It's People have it maybe once in a very long time. Usually when there are challenges, when someone loses a loved one, and then the person is not happy, and wondering what is this woman for 20 years of my life, and suddenly she just goes. I'm alone. My children are away. What am I living for? Why not? Why? What's this like? Oh, but you have something that is causing it. But that can also be a problem if the intensity is too severe for the level of loss, or if it's prolonged, taking a long period of time. There is a period of time that grief should last for. And when it extends beyond that, then it becomes abnormal grief and can become a mental health condition. So generally speaking, it's not a usual thing for everybody. I mean, there is something in us that seeks expression, and usually there is a purpose that everybody should be about seeking, and which should give you the desire and the zeal to live. So hope is a major fuel for living. So when we lose hope, when we begin to have hopelessness, it indicates that there is a problem and we need help. So please,
Wow.
such a person should seek help.
Thank you. So, your question has been answered, whoever sent that. So, feeling like life has no meaning, constantly waking up to say, why am I still alive? And, I wish I had passed on in the sleep. And all of that kind of thinking is a red flag. Like Dr. Ochendu says, seek urgent help for that person. Because when life has no meaning to that person is a red flag and it could lead to suicide. Okay, thank you very much. Now, you also mentioned that hope is a major fuel for living. That's so when people lose hope, losing hope. Well, that's why they say when there's life, there is hope.
Yeah.
So when people now lose that hope, it's a downward slide. Thank you very much for that. The next question is, and for our guests, those joining us, please send your comments. Please, you're welcome. I can see those of you online. Please, let's engage, let's interact. Send your questions, send your comments on the chat, and let us make this more interactive so that we know that we are making sense. And if you've got a question from what Dr. Uchendo has said, please write it in the chat and he's ready to answer them. Thank you for coming on. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and write a comment down below. The next question is, what type of help do you give to those suffering from mental health issues besides medication? So I guess what the person is saying is, yes, there's medication, and usually that's what people go for. But some believe, oh, there are side effects to medications. Is there anything else that can be done? And I know these are more like tips to help people, stress management or whatever it is, when it comes to controlling mental health issues for people. What are your thoughts, sir?
Okay, so this is a very important question, and I'm happy it's coming up. And because there are so many misconceptions about mental health care, and the treatment options that are available. I will tell you for free that before a psychiatrist prescribes a medication, it has to be that that's the last resort. Um, so we, more than any other specialty in medicine, psychiatrists view humans via should I call it three glasses or three lenses. Your biological aspects, that's your body, the functioning of your body, your psychological aspects, that has to do with your mind, and then your social aspect. So it's called the biopsychosocial model. And every one of us and every illness that we have has one of these, each of these three aspects I just mentioned involved. And we know that there are now therapies that have been scientifically proven. Research has shown, to the highest level of research, that these therapies are effective for certain mental health conditions. For example, a person who has mild to moderate depression might not need a medication. A person who has some form of anxiety problems might just need a form of psychotherapy. A person who has sleep problems might just need some adjustment, some education on sleep hygiene. So I want people to know that this is something we want everyone to know. If you have a mental health challenge, and do not, people tend to think that mental health issues just have to do with people who, in quotes, are mad. And but that is like maybe less than 1% of people who have mental health challenges. And because of the fear that the drugs they'll give them are the drugs they give to, again, in quotes, mad people, they do not come to receive help. And what was very small that could have just been nipped in the bud by minimum social skills, minimum interventions that someone could offer would then become a major problem that will result in admission eventually. So there are other things we explore. So we have something we call psychotherapy, basically, and there are different types addressing specific conditions. What the psychotherapy you do for someone with schizophrenia, for instance, is not the same you do for someone with depression. It's not the same you do for someone with eating disorder problems. So we have therapies that are directed at that, scientifically proven, some to be as effective as medication, some to be more effective and usually more effective when combined with medication when the conditions are severe. Now, there is also the aspect of the social treatment, which is very, very important. In fact, you find out that many of the patients that come that have mental health challenges have a baggage. In fact, all of us have the baggage of social issues. But when it's now strong enough to cause us to have problems, or serve as a risk for us to have problems, mental health problems, addressing those issues are very important to our treatment. I once had a patient, very recently, I had a patient who had guilt from something that he did that he wasn't so happy about. And he never knew that that could contribute to why he was experiencing what he was experiencing. my very first session, I, were able to pick that out and we started working on it. And you will be amazed at how much that alone can reduce the burden of distress that the person is facing. So do not have it in your mind that you're just coming to see a doctor, a psychiatrist, and all he's going to give you is a pill to go and take. We do that only when necessary. And so there are other things we can do. Usually, when we give medications, it's even in combination with these other psychological and social treatments that we also offer. Now, but of course, if a psychiatrist prescribes a medication for you, please do well to take it. Do not say Dr. Uchendu said that this condition can be treated only, there are some that we need you to have some drugs for a while.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So thank you for answering that question. So for that person asking what other help could be preferred to, or what other solution could be preferred to someone who is suffering with mental health issues, like he said, medication is usually the last resort by a professional. And so there are other things that they have to go through, all the psychotherapists and customizing treatment to each person. So you need to see a mental health practitioner to be able to tell you what, or tell the person or your loved one what they need to do. But always remember that medication is not usually the first thing they recommend, is usually the last resort if all these therapies don't work. So thank you. Now the next question: what are the symptoms of societal anxiety disorder and the practical way out? Someone says, I have a dear one I suspect is going through this. So symptoms, she or he wants to know what are the symptoms so they can know if actually it is society anxiety disorder. If I don't know if there's anything like that, but if there is, so she wants to know what are the symptoms so she can, or he can, because I don't know who it is, can direct the person to the right help or support they need. Hello, are you there? Oh, okay. There's the internet, I think, is playing up on us now. Dr. Ichendu, are you there? Okay.
Okay,
right. Are you there? Okay. Yes.
Yeah, okay, all right. So this is, I guess this person meant social anxiety disorder.
Social. I
Yeah,
thought it was.
so it's also called social phobia.
Okay.
And just from what the name is, social, and then phobia, or social and anxiety. So usually it's a condition that runs a chronic course and usually has its onset in late childhood towards adolescence. It's a disorder that is characterized by the person having fear for social situations. For example, fear in meeting a stranger, fear with eating, even with friends, eating on the same table because you feel you're being watched by them. Usually fear that has to do with performance tasks, that you have to do something and people are going to scrutinize what you're doing. You're going to give a talk to some group of people who are going to be watching how your mouth is moving, and that makes people self-conscious and afraid. So they have symptoms of anxiety, palpitation, restlessness, tremors, and they tend to avoid those situations. And it can be a very huge problem because, in today's world, no one, I mean, everything is social. In fact, your ability to make money, your ability to earn a good living depends on a lot on your social skills. So it's a major problem. Now, when this is persisting, of course, we feel anxious generally when we have things to do, you have a thought to give to a group of people whom you've never met before. It's not unusual, it's not abnormal for you to have some anxiety. But there is a form of anxiety that improves our performance. So there's a curve. So when we are anxious initially, it makes us prepare more and then it makes us focus on the task. But it gets to a point when it tips over and then it begins to give us a diminishing outcome where it affects our performance. And usually this is where those who have this social anxiety disorder or social phobia fall into. So to help such a one of the things, a number of things, The person who has this condition actually should be in therapy, should be seeing a psychiatrist and a clinical psychologist who would help manage, help the patient come out of it or the person come out of it. But at a personal level, what you could do would be to observe those particular situations, okay? Observe the things that tend to make you a bit anxious, um, and then try to carry out those tasks in bits. Rather than focusing on the large chunk of things you have to do, can you look at them in bits, okay, and focus on performing each task at a time rather than looking at, oh, all of this has to be done, and then it overwhelms you and you get more anxious, and then the whole process, happens again. So it could help to identify the particular situations, okay, and then see if you can focus on a task at a time, do it gradually, focusing on the task, not trying not to focus on what people are saying about it. So, but generally, for you to be able to do that, you need to go through some therapy sessions. There are some things you'll be taught some relaxation techniques. So relaxation, there are some relaxation techniques that help us in anxiety situations, okay, like deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation. So all of these things are things your therapist will put you through. And you do them when the situations are not there. And then you learn how to now, and then it becomes part of you, such that when you are confronted with such situations, you can bring forth that those techniques, and you have a negating effect to the anxiety, anxiety feeling you're having, or anxious feelings you're having. And then there is now a place for medication if that does not work, and if it's very intense. So it's something that if you get therapy for on time, it will really help your outcome. So generally speaking, mental health conditions tend to have a better outcome when help is sought on time before it becomes an ingrained issue, maladaptive kind of behavior or
Hmm.
kind of behavior primarily. So I hope that helps this person.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. So it's all about nipping it in the bud. When you see the signs, go straight to a therapist who would help with, to prefer a solution rather than leaving it till later. Thank you very much for that. The next question is, says so many women are so terrified getting help for mental health problems when they have children because they report it to child services. So how is that helping? So I guess what this person is saying is, as a result of maybe postnatal um, trauma or whatever it is after birth, having children, there's so many things kicking on with hormones and all that in a woman, and because maybe the woman snaps at some time or reacts in certain ways because they're stressed or whatever it is they're going through, social services get involved and say, oh, this person is not able to take care of the children. So it's I think what this person is saying is more like a comment. How does that help? What
Mm.
do you think? What do you think people
Yeah,
should do when they notice that they're having some issues when they have children, and this could lead them into trouble? So what do they have to do to avoid being put into trouble with social services? As children.
I'm not sure that's what she's asking though.
Oh,
I
okay.
think
My interpretation
yeah,
is
I
different.
think
Okay,
she's
go on.
asking that there are women who maybe after child delivery have mental health problems, or maybe not even immediately after child delivery, but they have children and they have mental health problems, but they
Oh,
are afraid to seek help because when they do, they are afraid that the mental health specialists are
oh,
going to call
okay.
in the services who would be giving custody of
Mm,
their children, and the person is wondering of what essence is that
oh,
delivery.
right. Okay.
Yeah, I think
You're the expert, you see.
I think so, because that's one of the fears people have.
Hmm.
Now, I would address this question in this manner. Um, if you remembered what we spoke about mental health, we said it affects a person's functioning. Now, if your child is going to get the best out of his or her life, he or she needs you as your mother to be at the best state mentally to be able to help him chart a course for his life. Okay. And that's something you must bear on your mind. Secondly, medical professionals generally will not do something to harm your children. So if they're recommending that social services be called in, it's because it is actually essential and it will safeguard not just the child, but
Mm.
you. Now, having said that, it's not, it's in fact in exceptional cases that would actually call in social services to come in. Usually in situations where the mother's health, either at that particular time, is so severely affected that the life's child's risk is high. For example, a woman who just gave birth and has postpartum psychosis. That's she has psychosis means being out of touch with reality. When a person has a mental health breakdown that makes him out of touch with reality,
Mm.
okay, such that the person is having those expressions you described earlier, like hallucinations, delusions, is acting out of context. Now, this woman, as we see in a number of situations in postpartum psychosis or depression, the mother could actually harm the child. The
Mm.
mother could take the child and fling the child on the floor, trying to
Mm.
kill the child so that she will preserve the child from facing the suffering that she is facing. That's the
Mm.
state of mind she is at that point. Of course, such a child should be secured, but we will not necessarily call the social services if there is a support, if there are social support around the patient. So the person's family will be the immediate social support to come in. So the grandmother, for instance, or the husband or whoever is around will be asked to take custody of the child while the mother is taken care of. And usually we expedite treatments in such instances because we know the importance of mother to child bonding. So it is
Mm.
it's actually ironic that we would think that mental health specialists who know the importance of attachment and bonding between a mother and a child would be the first to call in social services. It's in exceptional cases when it is really, really necessary. Because there are some
Mm.
people who have mental health conditions and who know they have, but who will not take medication, and some of them might have experiences like hearing voices that are commanding them to do things, and they're imperative, they do them, they obey those commands. Now, if
Mm.
such a person does not come for therapy, does not receive care, does not agree to take medication and goes back, it would be a problem for the mental health specialist not to call in social services. It would be a problem not to warn. There is something that is called the duty to warn and the duty to protect. So it's our responsibility to protect that child. It's our responsibility to warn anybody who is at risk by virtue of that person's mental state, since that person has refused to be cared for. But as long as you allow you receive the care that you need, I mean, you'll be fine.
Mm.
If there are a large percentage of people who have mental health problems who receive care, you wouldn't even know
Mm.
that these ones have been treated for anything, especially when they start receiving care on time. Okay, so and there are newer medications, there are things that can be done, and people live optimum, as best a life as possible as they can live while receiving care. So I don't think women should be discouraged or afraid. It is actually you're holding back that would eventually make you lose your child to social services because there is something we call insight. So when a person's insight is good enough to know that there is a problem, it's just natural to think that that person will seek help. So if the person has held back from seeking help for a long time, and then something happens, unfortunately, that maybe brings it to the open, and maybe has resulted in the harm of someone, it is imperative to make a report for such case. So before we get to that stage, why not let's heal this thing at its infantile stage?
Yeah. Mm. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, that person, you've heard it. It if the child's life is at risk, then the needful will be done by professionals, and they understand. Professionals understand the mother and child bonding, so it will help the entire family if a child is taken away, if that's the last resort, but they still know that there is a child and mother bonding that they need to consider. All right. Thank you very much for answering that question. We have just two more questions. Viewers, if you're there and you're thinking, oh, I have a question, please send the question in the chat. And yeah, send the question in the comments so that Dr. Uchendu can handle it. Does having mental health issues affect your profession? What do you think? If someone has a mental health condition, does it affect their profession? I think
Of
you
course, it
understand that
will.
question more than I do.
If the mental health condition is untreated, it will. Like we mentioned, if a person has a mental health disorder,
Mm,
when those experiences he's having is going to affect his function personally, occupationally, in his family, and in broader social context. So obviously, if your mind is not, if you're not in the best state of mind, you won't even be able to concentrate, or you'll be
mm,
carrying out instructions that were not given to you because you're not in the best state. If you're anxious, you won't concentrate. If you're sad, you won't concentrate. If you're having psychotic experiences, you won't concentrate. If you're having a kind of disorder that we call psycho conversion disorders or somatic somatoform disorders, when you have disorders, mental health conditions are affecting, presenting like bodily symptoms as if, but they actually a problem of mind to affect the person's functioning. But when you receive care, then we are talking about you getting back to your previous level of functioning as quickly as possible. Okay, so that's the issue. That yeah, 1 in 4. I mean, yes.
okay. The internet
Can you
is
still hear me, ma?
okay.
Yeah.
Now we can hear you. Thank you.
Can you hear me, ma? I think
Yes. Okay. So that's Dr. Uchendu's, yeah, the internet is trying to play up. And the question we had was, does, let me bring that question up again. It's the question is, does having mental health issues affect your profession? And he was just explaining that, oh yes, if one is mentally ill, definitely they won't be able to process things well. They won't be able to think well. They might even carry out instructions they were not asked to do because they're mentally unstable. So it could affect one's mental health. I'm still expecting Dr. Uchendu to come on the screen. Okay, we're still having internet issues. So I will just show a video that we have looked. Okay, I think it's come on now. Hello,
Okay.
you're here. Okay, so
Yes.
yes, I was
Okay.
just summarizing what you said, but please carry on.
Okay. Thank you. So I was saying that 1 in 4 persons would have a mental health condition in their lifetime. 1 in 5 persons would have will be clinically depressed at one time or the other. So what I'm saying in essence is mental health conditions are a major source of burden worldwide,
Hmm.
health burden. So why would you shy away from getting care? Okay, and wonder whether it will affect your profession. Maybe you could hide it. I mean, that's not the right mindset. That's not the mindset we're advocating. We're advocating a mindset that knows that a person can be sick, okay, and this sickness could be of the nature of a psychological distress. And there is treatment, there are interventions that are available to help this person live a normal as possible. So it's essential that we have that at the back of our minds. But generally speaking, those who even notice very severe mental health conditions, disorders, are those who are outside. So a person who is behaving unusually, for instance, might not know he is. It's his co-workers that will notice.
Hmm.
A person who is anxious and making mistakes, who has anxiety disorder and is making mistakes, might not see his mistakes until his boss calls his attention to it. So, and that's what we say. The issue of stigma does not come in usually when care is sought early. Stigma comes in when people themselves are now the one that have called you to see this problem and then now insists on you going to see a mental health specialist. Imagine a boss telling an employee to go to present a letter from a mental health specialist um, before he can resume work. That's because he has seen something. But if you notice those early signs we described and distress and you sought help, no one would even know something went wrong at the time.
Hmm.
So
So, thank you. So seeking help is like the main thing. It will definitely affect people's profession if they don't deal with it on time. Like they say, it's teaching time saves nine. You want to, if you see any signs, do whatever it takes, else it will definitely affect that person's profession negatively. Okay, our final question. Any question in the chat? No? So if you're watching and you know the people who need to listen to this, please share this video with them. Yes, you're permitted to share the video with them and let us all learn together. The essence of doing this is to learn together. Nobody knows it all, and that's why we are asking professionals like Dr. Ochendo. If you've watched the previous videos on loneliness, on grief, managing grief, you will understand that we all need to learn every day. So the final question, since there is no question in the chat, I think everyone understands and is flowing along with what you're saying. Thank you very much, Dr. Gochuku Uchendo. Finally, my brethren, is it okay for the person is asking, is it okay for me if I get angry about an issue but choose not to want to discuss with the person, yet I am visibly angry?
Okay. So the term for this is passive aggression. So this person is
Passive
being passive.
aggression, you said?
Yes. So you're
Oh,
being
okay.
passively aggressive, and that's a primitive kind of defense mechanism. What I mean is, it's not a mature way to live. Um, so when you have and you're bottling up emotions, okay. So when you have someone who has offended you, usually for the sake of your own well-being, not even for the person's sake, it's good to engage with that person. I mean, in the most humane way as you can, to let the person see the wrong he has done or the wrong you feel he has done. Because many problems we have, many relationship problems we have, are actually not primarily an issue of offense, but of misunderstandings. So, misjudged motives, okay, misunderstood intent. So when you tell the person, you might be surprised to see the person apologize profusely because he or she never meant it the way you interpreted it. And we tend to interpret things based on our experiences in the past. Our former experiences color the way we see things, the person who smiles at you every day might run into trouble with you because someone who used to smile at you a lot when you were a kid betrayed you. So since then, you started having problems with smiling people. That does not mean the
Can you
person.
say that again? You said our experiences color.
Yes, our past experiences color
Yeah.
the way we perceive things in our
Mm.
day-to-day living. So
Okay.
sometimes the misgivings you have towards someone may not necessarily have been that person's problem. It might have been your perception of his very pure action that he did out of maybe even love. So having a mind that now bottles up those things and you're angry, eventually you're going to get to the point where things are going to boil over. So, and when it boils over, you let out the whole content. And when you put, how do I describe this now? When you put palm wine, freshly brewed palm wine I come from the eastern part of Nigeria where we do a lot of palm wine. So if you put it and you allow it beyond a certain time, there's a time where the fermenting is nice for the taste. But it gets to a time when it becomes so bad that if you taste it, it's so sour that you're going to really spit it out of the mouth. And that's what happens with our emotions. So when so there are two things. When we get angry and we vent, we pour out that anger on the person instantly, that may be a problem because we might overreact. Okay, so sometimes it might be good to walk away and then come back to tell the person when you've caught your breath what he has done, and then you won't say something that will make you guilty and also wrong. Now, but it becomes a problem when you walk away and act as if all was fine, and you keep it until a certain day, maybe when another thing happens, and then you now bring it out. By that time that by that on that day when you're bringing it out, the content of that thing you're bringing out will be like a over fermented palm wine, and it shouldn't be nice on that person. It would further damage the relationship. So I think generally we should be guided with the principle of wanting to make the best of our relationships, because relationships to a large extent make our mental health.
Mm.
So when we have a bad relationship here and there, it makes us toxicity
Okay, the internet is playing up on us
that
again.
eventually cause us to have mental health problems. So when we are angry, for instance, there are certain hormones that are released in the body, chiefly from the sympathetic um, discharges in the body. Now, but there are two divisions, okay, basically of the nervous system. The sympathetic, which control our fight and flight responses, and the parasympathetic, which is more, which helps us to calm down. So when we are angry and bitter and and bottling up those things, we are constantly making the stress hormones high in our body. And eventually these things tend to affect our mind and make us come down with anxiety, with depression. And the person you're angry at maybe he still has a very free mind towards you. So
Mm.
please, it's good to onboarding. It's good to talk with the person. It's good to seek dialogue and when you feel offended and pour it out. So this is passive aggression, and it could also result in another defense mechanism called acting out, where you begin to do things uh, that are even not socially acceptable because of your anger from what the person has done. And the person is wondering what is the problem. And this happens a lot in homes, husband and wife relationship. You see
Mm.
a wife who feels offended by the man and does not tell the man what the problem is. And for 2 days, the man is wondering, why is my wife wearing a long face? And she's just doing everything and everything and everything. And before within that 48 hours, more problem has resulted
Mm.
than will have been solved if the wife had told him from day one, this thing you did, I didn't like it.
Mm. 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 I think timing is also very critical.
It
Like
is.
you said, is like a palm wine. If you don't tackle it now, there and
Yeah.
then, there are two ways to it. Is either you tackle it there and then and overreact, and it causes
Mm,
more problems, or you leave it till later and then it becomes like, what are you on about?
yeah,
Something that we
exactly.
from 6 months ago, or or 3 days ago, you're still carrying that, and then it becomes
Toxic.
immature. So
Yeah,
striking
yeah.
that balance.
Mm,
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Wow. That's so anger is part of life, like you said.
yeah,
It's part of life, and we all feel angry at some point. But when it's constant, when it's repetitive, when it's persistent,
yeah.
then there's a need to seek help. Thank you very much, Dr. Ochendo. We have just 2 more minutes to 1 hour. We've been sitting for 1 hour. That's interesting. It's so
Yeah.
interesting when you have things like this interesting topic where you don't know when time flies. It says you don't know you're having no, you don't know when time flies when you're having fun, or something like that, people
Mm-hmm.
say.
Exactly.
Anyway, so yeah, thank you very much. I'll just say in 1 minute, do you have last word for people watching out there, maybe something that hasn't been asked but you think is necessary to talk about? Over to
Yeah,
you.
so I would just say that people should generally understand that the brain is an important, in fact, probably, not probably, the most important organ in the body. The heart is also important because if disease is person is dead. And your mental health has a lot to do with your brain. Now, if a person has diabetes, for instance, diabetic mellitus, and is being treated with medication, the person does not see it as strange. So why do we have problems when we are having symptoms that show us that maybe something, a balance, there is an imbalance in some chemicals in the brain, and just the medication or some form of therapy will help us. So we need to really destigmatize mental health challenges. It happens to the best of us, and it is not something we should shy away from. So, and remember that the earlier you seek help, the better it is. I mean, the outcome will be. So I think that would be my last word. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's so impactful. That's the last word that should ring in the ears of people more and more. That if we can actually use medication for diabetes, hypertension, and all other diseases, why not? If there's a problem with that organ in that's the brain, is also part of the organs. If there's a problem with the kidney or the liver, they prescribe medication and you use it. If there's a problem with the brain and medication is prescribed, why not use it as well? Because we're talking of health. So thank you. That's profound. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Not
Dr.
many people
Bumi.
think about it that way. So if you have a problem with your finger, you use a medication for the finger. But why is it
Exactly.
for the brain that you just think,
Exactly.
I'm not going that down that route? Okay, thank you. And even if people have headache, it still has to do with the brain, isn't it?
Exactly. It's the brain.
So
It's the brain.
yeah,
It's a cultural thing that has, I
yeah,
mean, maybe now a global culture, but
mhm,
it's a very wrong one. So
mm,
we need to take care of our mental health. We
yeah,
need to.
yeah. Wow, thank you very much, and I really appreciate your coming here. God bless you wonderfully,
Yeah.
and may you
Thank you.
continue
Thanks
to
for
add
having me.
value to your world and be what God wants you to be. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Bumi.
So
Nice to
I'll
visit
see you
you.
later.
All right. Thank
Thank you.
you.
I'll see you
Bye.
later. Bye bye. So, viewers, you've heard it all. If you're having a headache and you use medication, if it's tipping above the threshold and you're prescribed medication, why not? If you're having diabetes or hypertension or any other kind of disease in the body and you're prescribed the medication, you don't think twice, you use it. Why not for mental health? So, but like Dr. Ochendo said, it's always the last resort. Medication is the last resort, and there are other. Oh, somebody has asked. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Kainde Akin Bulo Sire. But Akinbolu Sire. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And so, yes, if you know anyone who needs the information that has been shared here, please share with them. And until I come your way next time, stay healthy physically, mentally, and in every aspect. So, bye bye, and I'll see you next time.